This is the Eddy Corns podcast, and it's trade deadline day, one of my favourite days in the sporting calendar. And my goodness, there's a lot to unpack. So many trades that did happen and some big names that didn't end up getting moved. What does it mean for the rest of the NBA season? What does it mean for the playoffs? What does it mean for the next few years? Me and Oli Landos unpack it all right here on the Eddy Corns podcast. If you want more footy content, more NBA content, maybe there'll be a Super Bowl pod coming for you on Monday. Subscribe. Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We're so close to the 500 subscriber mark. We were trying to get there by the end of February. Let's make it happen by the end of next week. Let's just get it out the way and move on. That's what we want to do. So subscribe on YouTube. And if you enjoy the episode, leave a 5-star review on Apple or Spotify. All right. Let's jump into this episode. If you disagree with anything, leave a comment. Hit me up on socials at Corns Eddy, Twitter, Instagram. Let's jump into it. Enjoy. Oli, it's been a minute since you've been on the podcast, and we've got a lot to discuss today. First of all, how are you?
I'm going okay. I would say that there's a bit more of a flat line now that the trade deadline's done. We'll probably get into it, but pretty disappointing for on a personal level. I did enjoy waking up every morning and checking my notifications to see if we have any good news. It wasn't to be, so I'm hanging in there, and now I'm probably just keen for the footy season now.
Yeah, agree. I'm pumped for the footy season. By the way, me and Oli are both Warriors fans, if you weren't aware. There's a few new listeners to the podcast. So we've had a rough morning. I guess it was a rough, 16 hours? The trade broke just before we went to bed. But we're going to hold off on that for a little bit because, first of all, I want to get to the trades that didn't happen before we get to the trades that did happen, because I think that's even more interesting than the trades that actually did go through on deadline day. We have to start with Giannis. He was the biggest name being thrown around really for the past probably 2 months, I reckon. And even before the season, there was always rumors of Giannis potentially getting dealt before the end of the deadline. It didn't actually happen. The fallout's been really interesting. Shams has been getting smoked on social media. We might talk about that. I think he deserves all the hate he's getting. And Giannis goes on Instagram and Twitter, puts up the video of the Wolf of Wall Street saying, "I'm not fucking leaving." And he's going on this massive victory lap, talking about how this was never a real thing. He was never leaving. I call bullshit. Oli, what do you think?
Oh, this drove me absolute nuts. So straight up, if we're giving it a grade, Giannis gets an F in this trade period. He is just being an absolute loser. I sit here now and I'm like, what the hell was the point of that? It was completely pointless. He's literally done everything up and like 90% of requesting a trade without actually requesting a trade. Who the hell goes to climb Everest and just does 90% of it and then stops and then turns around? What is the point of that? I just can't believe it. I don't understand why he'd possibly do this. So this has been the first season where he's probably realized his basketball mortality. He's had a few calf injuries. He hasn't been able to stay healthy. And before this, he's been an absolute monster, basically being super durable, playing like 60 plus, 70 plus games each year. But now he can't stay on the court. This is his one chance. Move so you don't have to carry the load and try and contend for another championship. Because I don't know if you realize, but he's only won one championship. He's seen as an all-time player. He's one of my favorites to watch. He's absolutely brilliant. But then now what he's done is that he's kicked the can down the alley. He's not going to get another chance at a playoff opportunity this year. And then going forward, it becomes even more messy on where he'll go at the end of the season. So there was offers on the table, but he just refused to sort of take that extra 10% and say, I'm out. I'm not coming back here. Make a trade.
I just don't get his whole thinking throughout this process. Like, you're not allowed to take a victory lap and tell people they're idiots, which he's done today, while also, like you said, basically getting as close to requesting a trade as you can possibly get. This guy, if he wants to be a one-team player, that is fine. But come out and say it. Don't put your team in this position where they're fielding trade offers for 2 months, and then as soon as the deadline passes, you act like, oh, nothing happened. It's just... a really bad day for Giannis, in my opinion. And this guy was one of the most beloved players in the NBA. No one said anything bad about him. But I honestly look at this and I just think he loved the attention. Like that's the only thing that makes sense from this whole situation. And the reporting around it seems to kind of back my thinking up on that. And it's not just his love of attention that has gotten a little bit of, has been talked about the last few weeks. It's also the fact that apparently he didn't really want to go to a team with another guy that was on his level because he didn't want to be forced to be a second option. So the Warriors got brought up and there was a report that he didn't want to be like Kevin Durant and have that kind of stigma around him for the rest of his career. First of all, completely different situation. KD was coming to a team that just was one of the greatest of all time before the finals and was playing with the guys that eliminated him from the playoffs.
And he'd never won a championship.
Exactly. And he'd never won a championship. This Warriors team is so far past it at this point and is not even close to competing this year without him. So I didn't get that report at all. And it sounds like he didn't want to play with Ant for the same reason. So just a really strange day for Giannis. And for Bucks fans, I wonder how they feel because this guy gets to suck back up to them now. He gets to say, I never wanted to leave. I've loved you this whole time. And in reality, at the back of their mind, they know that's not true. In the back of their mind, I'm sure they know that Giannis at some point thought about leaving them and probably thought about it quite a lot. So I don't understand this situation one bit. And I think it's been a pretty terrible day for the Bucks, Giannis, and just his brand as a whole.
Yeah, you know what absolutely kills us, and I know you'll agree with me here. I always saw Giannis as a super authentic, super not only dominant player, but just handled himself really well. I really enjoyed his attitudes, his press conferences, you know, like his famous one when he talked about, oh, we didn't lose, like all these sort of motivational press conferences he has. This sort of season of these weird rumors, these semi-trade requests without requesting, it's very LeBron-esque. And I really 100%. Dislike that about LeBron. So it really pains me because I always saw them differently. But then now, how can I possibly not crucify him for the same stuff that I crucify LeBron for when he's doing the exact same stuff? The stuff where he's being a diva, he's not actually standing behind anything he says. Like, we're in the modern day NBA. This is why I'm looking at the James Harden deal, and I respect it. Harden doesn't mind being a hired assassin. He doesn't mind getting traded around, going to different teams. Don't half-ass it. Don't sit on the fence. It just kills fan bases. It burns relationships. And it just also just creates so much confusion about what sort of person you are.
Yeah, and honestly, this is where I think we're going. This is a theory, and I could be so wrong. It could be really funny. Like, but before the season, we were on a podcast, and I said I thought LeBron was going to get traded. I actually thought we got somewhat close to that with how the Lakers are playing, but a few days before the deadline, they said it's not going to happen. I reckon we're going to get to the offseason. The Lakers are going to have LeBron off their books, and I think the Lakers are going to be in the driver's seat for Giannis. And I think Giannis is going to look at that opportunity with Luka, and he's instantly going to change his mind, and he's going to head to LA. And after this whole victory lap around, I love Milwaukee, I'm never leading, he's going to become very much Durant-esque, leave for the Lakers, and team up with Luka Doncic. I think that's where we're headed. And it's just going to reflect so poorly on Giannis the last, 6 hours around how he's acted, because I just don't see him being in Milwaukee next year. And whether it's with the Lakers or someone else, I think he's going to get traded during the offseason. And again, I just think it's a really bad day for Giannis.
Yeah, I fully agree. And I reckon that trade might be on the money, which absolutely just stings as well. I think bigger picture, you always want teams that are smaller, like Milwaukee. When they get an all-time player, you really just hope that they're able to hold on to them. And obviously they got their championship, and maybe that's just where we're going. We're not going to get those smaller teams usually keeping a player for 20 years and then wanting to stay. But it just it feels a bit evil that the big LA Lakers just get their mitts just on another just incredible star to pair with their other star that just fell in their lap. Like, I know that's just how it goes. We get it in leagues around the world. It's just how it works. But it does kind of cause me a bit of like pain, just because the scenes in that 2021 chip were just sensational. He'd fallen short. He broke through. Tears was the king of Milwaukee, and it just pains me that he'll probably end up at just some sort of big franchise. And obviously, we would have taken him and been absolutely over the moon. But I still think that as a sports fan, those sort of stories are really great. And we're going to miss out on him being sort of the king of Milwaukee, because he'll probably have a split career.
Yep, and now we have to watch Giannis on this Bucks team that looks like it has almost no interest in competing this year, with Doc Rivers, who's well past his prime, and Miles Turner surrounding him, and just players that are nowhere near the level that they need to be. And in an Eastern Conference that is really weak, and if they hadn't made this Dame trade, and maybe things look super different. So obviously this isn't just on Giannis. The way the front office has handled his last few years hasn't been good enough. But yeah, rough day for Giannis and the Bucks. Ja Morant is the other name that didn't get traded today, and it was heavily rumored that Memphis was pretty much just going to give him away at this point. They were desperate to reset completely. Clearly the offers weren't good enough for him. What have you made of this whole situation in Memphis?
Well, first of all, Ja aside, because I think there's a level that teams need to be able to stand up in the trade period, and they can't just give away their players. And star gets thrown around a lot, so I'm not sure if Ja is still a star, to be honest.
Okay.
But you can't just throw away a player like that for a bag of peanuts. You just can't do that. And it's just, so I'm actually quite impressed with Memphis. I think, so they made the Western Conference Finals, or the second round, in 2022. And since then, they've had a pretty tumultuous sort of time. They've had feet injuries for Triple J. They've had Ja Morant with his gun dramas. They've had Ja Morant with injuries. They've had Dylan Brooks being Dylan Brooks. They've had a whole lot of issues. And so from that 2022 point onwards, it's probably the worst simulation that they could have had so far, like from that point. So what I really appreciate with franchises is when they are able to review themselves properly, look around and figure out where they're going. And they were flogging a dead horse with Triple J and Ja Morant. It was going nowhere. They really felt like they missed out on an opportunity to compete for a championship, which I actually agree with. I don't feel like they ever got all of their sort of elements all going in this one direction for a particular year. But I think the Ja Morant, keeping him's okay. They're going to be able to get rid of him at the end of the year. They'll put him on ice. But the Triple J thing, I'm not sure if you want to include that in this, is just an awesome sort of recognition that we are not where we need to go. We need to find a way to build draft capital. We've got rid of Desmond Bane for a massive price, and then now we get Triple J for a massive price as well. Hold on to Ja Morant. He's a bit more of a fan favorite. Maybe you draft well and he can hang around and be a bit more of a vet. I still think he'll probably go, but I'm not too concerned about trading all your pieces at once. They got rid of 2 of the 3, and they got so much in return. So I'm actually quite impressed with Memphis. I'm giving them an A.
Great call. Self-awareness is so important in sport, and you touched on it there. Like, Memphis has pretty much reset the best possible way they can. I mean, the one criticism you can put on them is they probably should have traded Ja a year earlier. He's always going to be a tough guy to deal because his contract is, pretty significant. There's still 2 years left at around $43 million a year. So it's not a contract that's super easy to trade, especially in the second apron era. But let's move to the Triple J trade, which happened a few days ago. So it was an 8-player deal. Mostly contract filler, so I'm not going to go through each name in the trade, but basically it's Jaren Jackson Jr. for 3 first-rounders, the picks that Utah sent to Memphis, the Los Angeles Lakers 2027 pick, and then the most favorable 2027 first-round pick of Utah, Cleveland, and Minnesota. We're guessing that's going to be Utah, unless there's some crazy injuries to either Minnesota or Cleveland. And then they also sent the Suns 2031 first-round pick. I think it's an awesome result for Memphis. Like you said, I pretty much agree with everything you said there. Like, it's just a great trade to reset with. There's some really valuable assets in there. Who knows what that Utah 2027 pick's going to be like. You'd expect the Lakers pick to not be great because Luka most likely will be on the team and potentially Giannis if our theory pays off. Phoenix 2031, who knows. I've kind of talked myself into it for Utah, though. We're going to grade some trades today, and you've already started doing that. I'm going to give it a B+ for Memphis and B- for Utah. It's a lot to give up for Jaren Jackson Jr., and I'm someone who thinks he's an overrated asset. I just don't think he's a winning player, and I think he's probably going to be your fourth best player in a championship team. You know, Memphis got kind of far with him and Jar in their absolute prime, but Bane was also on that team. I think he's got to be like your fourth option. But the reality for Utah is they just really struggle to bring players in because of where they're located. So if there's an opportunity to bring a guy in who is clearly a valuable asset, maybe not as valuable as some other people think, you kind of have to do it. And they've got a lot of picks. They're going to get another high draft pick this season. So I think it was a reasonably okay trade for Utah. They gave up too much, but you got to do what you got to do. And for Memphis, I loved it.
Yeah. I've already mentioned the Memphis side of it. Utah side, and similar to where Memphis are going to head now, where they're probably going to have maybe one good player, a bunch of draft capital, and they're going to just be bottom of the barrel sort of teams for a while, for the next few years. The Jazz have been that for a long time now. When you really think about how long ago the sort of Donovan Mitchell trade was, Rudy Gobert, when they had like those fun series with Denver and OKC, that's a while ago now. And I think as a fan base, especially as you said with the location of Utah, you need to make some moves eventually. And I think they got to the point where they just got really restless and they're like, oh God, we need to bring something in just to inject our like group with something to make them feel like they can, like there's actually light at the end of the tunnel. So as much as I agree with the thinking of regards to spending some of their draft capital and paying overs for someone to bring them in, because as we know, we see it in the AFL as well, the mid-tier teams have to overpay for stars where other sort of bigger clubs, they just fall in their lap. Yeah, I don't think Triple J is the player that I would have gone after. He has some injury history. He's the modern day big, plays good defense. I hate how he just can't stay out of foul trouble. It kills me. It is the worst ever. That and him and Kat, they're actually it kills me. It does not matter what point of the game. If it's just a wide open layup, they are just slapping down. And I'm like, boys, keep your hands to yourself. But so there's a few elements, and obviously it's well documented with Bill Simmons as well that he just does not rebound. And for someone that size, you've just got to be able to get some boards. So I agree with the mindset of Utah, but I don't feel like it was the right player. So I'm going to give it a C+.
Okay. I think we're reasonably on the same page there, but yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting trade, and I think Utah starting to get aggressive is just something they have to do because, like you said, they've been in a really tough situation for a few years now, and at some point you have to take some swings, and that's exactly what that trade is. Let's get to, I think, the biggest name that got traded. It happened 2 days ago. James Harden, Garland, straight up swap. Came really out of nowhere. Harden is claiming he didn't request a trade. No one seems to really know what's happened behind the scenes, but the theory is that basically LA tried to trade Harden for Garland. Harden had to waive his 15% trade kicker for the trade to work. LA went to Harden. He wasn't that pleased, but said he'd go if Cleveland eventually extended him. They can't extend him until the end of the season, so there's some wink, wink, nudge stuff happening behind the scenes. And eventually we get to this point where it's a very rare, almost a straight-up swap. Harden has a player option next year for $42 million. Again, clearly wants an extension. Garland has 2 years left after this season for $42 and $44 million, respectively. What'd you make of the trade?
Well, I think I've got a bit of a stat for you, and that literally sums up the trade perfectly. So it's the first star-for-star trade with a 10 or more year age gap. So I think that really shows just the desperation on the side of the Cavaliers. And again, we're talking about looking yourself in the mirror for the Clippers. So I actually really like this trade. I give it a B plus. I'm really impressed with it. Cleveland, for the last couple of years, they've got heaps of talent, but they just haven't been able to all stay on the court at the same time. Harden is super durable. He plays a lot, whether he's obese like he was for the Nets for a little bit, or as fit as he's ever been. He doesn't really get injured. He's really, really durable. That's exactly what Cleveland need. I think you're banking on the next 2 years of Harden will be equal or higher level of Garland for the next 2 years. And then obviously you get the extra years for Garland career because he's like, 26 or whatever he is. So I really like it from Cleveland. It's a very much a win now sort of move. And also with Donovan Mitchell, there's major concerns already that he is going to look to leave. So this is a sort of, you've got all these assets. You've got Mobley, who's young. You've got all these players. You've got to try and compete for a championship right now, especially while the East is nice and weak. So I love it for Cleveland. From the Clippers side, God, the Clippers just get tortured. They just are so unlucky. Like, you look at, they bring in Kawhi and PG, and it's probably the best day in their fan base's history. They just never get a chance to win with those two. They've either got one or the other or none. And then last year was probably their best chance to win it when they finally got rid of PG, brought in Norman Powell. They looked really, really good in the back half of the year. And then they come against one of the best players of all time in Nikola Jokic, and they lose in 7. So they are just absolutely tortured. But I love this trade because I think once Powell left, and I mentioned this in a previous pod, they were just nowhere near the level that they need to be. And despite them having a good last month and a half or so and turning around their awful start of the year, they were never going to compete in the West. So sell high, get the Garland, the young asset back, who is on a good contract, young player, and close up shop and realize that you're not going to compete with Kawhi Leonard.
I think this is a really dumb trade from a Cavs point of view. Really dumb. So Harden's 10 years older. He's going to want an extension. He's a guy that just never seems to be happy. He doesn't win big games and just is overall a really difficult guy to deal with on your team. And the biggest issue for the Cavs the last few years has been Mitchell and Garland trying to coexist. Tell me how you go from Garland to Harden and expect that to get better. Harden is the most ball-dominant player, arguably in NBA history, and you want him and Donovan Mitchell to coexist? I don't see it happening. I actually can't understand the thinking there. And the Garland thing, we traded him away because we need a guy who's always healthy. And that's been the reasoning I've heard all week. If you actually sit down and look at the injuries that Garland has had over the last few years, they are freak injuries, just completely random. Broke his jawbone. He had a random thigh injury. Right now he's out because his toes hurt.
His toes are cooked.
You think this is going to keep going? There is no chance. The Clippers have absolutely fleeced the Cavs here. The Cavs have actually gone backwards. I don't understand it at all. I think this is just going to be a trade we look back on and think, what the fuck? Actually, what were they thinking? I can't understand this trade. It makes no sense.
I disagree with you a lot. When you say about the freakish injuries, if someone's always injured, it doesn't matter how.
The guy broke his face.
The amount of toe injuries that Garland has is ridiculous. I actually need to see his toes. I want to see how messed up they look because he's been out with toe turf or turf toe for 2 years in a row.
Tasmania announced a sponsorship with Tim's today, the boots. Garland needs to wear those from now on. Don't play in basketball boots. Play in those, and he'll be fine. Honestly, let me read this out for you. Okay, toe injury, hip injury, thigh injury, eye injury, illness, groin. Are you kidding me? It's just the most random stuff. He's never had a major injury. He's never fucking done his ACL. He's never pulled a hamstring off the bone. He's got none of the soft tissue stuff. It is just, he got punched in the face and his jaw shattered. His toe got stepped on and he's out for 10 games. Stop with the Garland is a guy you can't rely on to play in the playoffs. I'm done. He's a winning player. He was awesome with the Cavs before they traded for Mitchell, and people forget that. It's just an example of two players who don't fit together. For some reason, everyone's just blamed this whole situation on Garland, when I think Mitchell has just as much responsibility of why this pairing didn't work. And I think the Clippers, we're going to get to the Zubac trade. I think in 3 years, they'll look at this trade and they'll say, what a win for us. We got Darius Garland, who can be a franchise guard on our championship level roster. Just a disastrous trade from the Cavs. I don't get it.
Yeah, see, I understand your points, but I feel like if you have all of those range of injuries before you, like when you turn 26, then I think we can pretty much sort of estimate what the rest of your career is going to look like.
I don't know. I think there's...
I'm keen to revisit this. This is going to be very fun to revisit.
Steph Curry early in his career, tons of random injuries, particularly with his ankles. Never did a knee, never pulled his hamstring off the bone. Guy has been completely durable since. He just needs a better physio. That's all it is. Get his toes looked at, maybe have surgery in the off season. He'll be fine. And some things. All right. Let's move to Zubac, because I actually thought this was a very fascinating trade as well. So the Pacers get him for Mathurin, Jackson, a 1-4 and a 10-30 protected first round pick this year, and a 2029 first round pick. Zubac has about 3 years left at around $20 million a year. It's a really interesting trade from both sides, I reckon.
Yeah, I absolutely love it for the Clippers. Obviously, I've mentioned that with the Harden take, but I think this is, again, it's selling an asset high, and opposed to being sort of like a battling to try and get into that 5th or 6th or 7th spot in the West, they have gone, nah, we're off the pace. We're not even going to contend for the West. Let's get rid of him and get in some draft capital, because obviously they've been tortured on Twitter about that PG trade for the last 5 years, talking about how little assets they have. So at some point, they've got to sell some assets to get some draft assets back, and they've done this here. I think Indiana probably overpaid for him. I love Zubac, but I'm not as sure that an asset like that works in the NBA as effectively as we think he does. I think he had a really good situation at the Clippers. I think he was able to put up stats on teams that weren't that great, so his stats make him look a bit better. I enjoy watching him play, but I'm slightly concerned of how well he moves around the court. And in that sense, I feel like they've overpaid for Zubac. And if they're trying to look for a Miles Turner sort of replacement, Zubac just does not stretch the floor like Turner did. So there's going to be some concerns there with Tyrese Halliburton coming back next year. So I'm interested to see the actual look of it, because it's really going to be really hard to rate this. Like, we can give our first thoughts now, but it's going to be really hard to have. We're not going to know until next year, until the Indiana Pacers are actually trying again. So I don't mind. I love it from the Clippers. Indiana, like, I can say I'm going to give it a B. I just think they overpaid, but I love it for the Clippers because, again, they've looked themselves in the mirror. They're off the pace. Let's sell.
So here's what the Pacers roster is going to look like at this stage next season. So Zubac, Halliburton, Siakam, Nembhard, Nesmith, Toppin, Walker, Huff, and McConnell. I think that's a really strong 8 or 9 players. The fit, like you mentioned, is going to be interesting. And I reckon they're going to be a team that starts quite slow. Finding the balance between Siakam and Zubac is going to be strange, I reckon. But I reckon the Pacers will just tell him, look, we need you to try really hard on defense. Anything we get from you offensively is going to be a bonus. We'll kind of have you and Siakam, not necessarily sharing the floor a ton. I don't reckon. I reckon they'll kind of stagger him quite a bit with Siakam, but I really like the trade, and I actually think he's underrated, Zubac. I don't think he gets the credit for how good his season was last year. And, the Clippers have just been a super strange team this year. And now Kawhi Leonard's looking around like Will Smith in Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. No one's around. Nothing. There's just emptiness. And I actually don't know where this leaves Kawhi.
One time he's healthy as well.
Exactly. So where do you think we go with Kawhi Leonard at this stage of his career?
Well, I think I was hoping that the Warriors would have a look at him, honestly. But I just think he's probably going to stay there. He's obviously a California boy. He wants to stay in LA, and things can turn around quite quickly. But I think he'll be looking around now and probably being like, "Is my time here coming to an end? Do I want to stay here?" And there's every chance, especially someone like Kawhi, who's a pretty interesting cat. I think there's a pretty decent chance that he'd be like, "I'm happy here. I love living in LA. Let's bring on some young talent." Maybe I don't care about sort of ring chasing. Maybe I'm happy here. Maybe I've won my 2 chips. I've won my 2 finals MVP. I'm not really sure how much more historically he can actually increase and sort of pad his resume. So it would not surprise me if he's happy to be there, stays with the young talent. Maybe he enjoys playing with Garland. Who knows what? But I think he's probably going to stay.
The Lakers basically did nothing today, and that's clearly to gear up for the offseason, and they're going to go after a big name because it looks like LeBron's not coming back. Would the Clippers trade Kawhi to the Lakers?
I don't think they would. I think there's too much beef there. I just don't think that it's a very good look. Can you imagine if they bring in Kawhi and him and Luka are absolutely outstanding? I think that's too close to home. I think similar to the NFL where you don't get players traded to teams in your division, there's just too much of that. And I think the LA little brother, big brother sort of scenario, it's real. It is properly real. And you can see all the money that Steve Ballmer is putting into the Clippers to try and make them more relevant. I think that would halt a lot of that momentum.
Right. All right. So I think we both agree Kawhi's just going to spend the rest of his days planting trees and load managing, and we'll see what happens. AD is up next. He got traded to the Wizards. Again, another 8-player trade, which is just mainly contract filler. So it's basically Anthony Davis for 2 firsts and 3 seconds. He's got 2 years left on his deal after this season. One of the years is a player option, but the average salary is about $60 million. Bill Simmons was saying on his podcast, he now has Rich Paul a part of the Ringer. Originally, one of the clauses of trading for Anthony Davis was basically you have to give him an extension. They decided to back off that as the trade deadline came closer because no one was willing to do it. So the Wizards now have Anthony Davis, who he's only played 60 games twice in the last 10 years and has only played 20 games this year, 9 last year, and 42 the season before that. Is it a swing that is worth Washington's time? Is it something that you look at and say, you know what, Washington, at least you're having a crack?
I'm on the record here. I absolutely love it from the Wizards. I love it. Okay. I love not only it might crash and burn and there might be riots in Washington again, but my goodness, I love watching weird basketball fits. I'm so keen to see Trae Young with AD. I just hope that we get half a season of them. We'll probably only get maybe 25 games of it, but I would love to get 40, please. But I really like it. The Wizards were going nowhere. They've got a little bit of talent with Alex Sarr, NBL loyalist, good boy. But they were in sort of just the death zone. They were just nowhere. They were doing nothing. It felt like they just couldn't land any good draft picks. They obviously got rid of Denny Advier as well. So they'd just been the joke of the league. Everyone just popping the shit out of them, saying that, oh, yeah, well, how many people go to your Wizards games, blah, blah. I've been to a Wizards game. Side note, it cost me $20 US to get in. I saw them play the Nets 5 years ago.
No.
It is absurd. Like a kid's ticket, you could literally go for $4. And so they have been, and that's a long time ago. That was like 2019 or something like that. So it's now 7 years gone and they're still an absolute shit show. I love it. It's buying a talent that they might not get a good run at it. Trae Young's going to be weird. Put them on ice for the rest of the year. Try and get them a preseason together, and then see what happens.
Yeah. Agree. I think the Wizards have done something really smart here, and they've just bought low onto assets that easily in a season's time could be worth double what they are now. Trae Young's value has never been lower for when the Wizards traded for him, and same thing for Anthony Davis. And you can say he, hasn't been anywhere near close to his prime the last 2 seasons, and maybe the Luka Doncic trade broke him, and maybe he'll never play 40 games in a year again. But I think it is a swing that is absolutely worth taking. And if they strike out, I don't think it's a disaster. You do not extend him. That is the one thing I'll say. Wizards, you've done so well here. Do not give this guy a contract extension. Don't bend the knee to his demands. I don't care if he plays 10 games and he averages 40 over that period. Do not extend him until as late as you possibly can. And for a fact, this guy's body isn't cooked. But just on paper right now in a vacuum, it's an awesome trade. I love it. And I think the Wizards are slowly starting to creep up the rankings in terms of smart.
Yeah.
They're getting there. They've been right down the bottom for probably my whole lifetime. But I think the last 2 years, they're starting to find some momentum and they're starting to do some smart things. So respect to Washington.
Yep. Shout out Washington. And also, Eddie, I actually cannot wait to send you a screenshot of the AD 3 for 120 mil contract extension. I actually can't wait. Oh my God. I cannot wait to send that through.
If they do that, my opinion on the trade completely 180s. I'm the opposite way. It's dumb as hell. Just so stupid.
No, we've already got the headline. We've already got the headline of you saying it's your favorite trade of all time. We already got it. Doesn't matter.
All right. Next up, it's time. We have to talk about it. I don't want to do it, but the Warriors have traded for Kristaps Porzingis, and they've given up probably the most frustrating athlete in the history of my watching of sport, my experience watching the Warriors. I just can't stomach this guy ever again. Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield, who I actually has been terrible this year, but it was sad to see him go. What are we even doing here? I don't even know.
Oh, you want me to go? You got some more thoughts?
Just go ahead.
Just go. Well, this is just the final nail in the coffin of ruining the twilight of Steph's career. We lucked out and had a good run in 2022. We were able to win a chip when we probably weren't supposed to. And from that point on, you probably thought you had another 3, maybe 4 decent years of Steph, maybe even less, right?
Yeah.
Steph has continued to show up, and he's given us now 4, and he's still at an incredible high level. And the front office, it's just really frustrating when wealthy people buy sports teams and they've been really successful, whether it's tech, whether it's motor, whether it's whatever, oil, wherever they've made their money, and they buy a sports team and they have some success early, and then they're like, oh, wow, this is easy. This is just like fantasy football. This is completely just like, well, I don't know why everyone complains about this. And then these rich people just get bloody arrogant, and then they think that they can just, everything they touch turns to gold. This is what Joe Lacob did to us. He has made awful trades. Bob Myers read it and he got out. Respect to him. And poor Mike Dunleavy has come in and he's trying to put this team together when all the issues all came as soon as Kevin Durant left. And this is what's happened. If you don't put in the seeds early, if you don't make smart trades, if you don't have a win now approach when you have an all-time talent, then you know what happens to you. It bites you in the bum and you are the shittest seed. You've got injuries. You've got angry assets that are not playing the game style. And then now we're at this point where we have to watch a sad Steph Curry go around, our hero, running around and it never being enough to win games consistently. So, Joe Lacob, screw you.
Okay. Here's my thoughts. All right. This is not on Dunleavy at all. I actually don't think the front office could have done anything more this year. If Giannis wasn't ever going to get traded, this was the next best option. I saw reports that they were thinking about Ja. I would actually cry if I had to root for Ja Morant and Brandon Pajemski on the same team. I would just stop watching basketball full stop. So I'm happy they didn't do that. They get Porzingis, who's on $30 million a year, which is ridiculous. But he's expiring. So you get him off the book straight after this. He may never even play a game for the Warriors. Who knows? But you just accept the contract expiring. You punt away this year. The sins of the Warriors, like you said, go to Joe Lacob. And I actually think Bob Myers, who did a great job early on in his tenure, the 2-timeline thing is one of the all-time fuck-ups I can remember in basketball. It is the prime example of someone getting so far ahead of themselves because of their winning. And guess what? The Warriors won a lot. But if we did a pie chart of who deserves the most credit for the Warriors winning, it's Steph Curry at about 80%. Kevin Durant's in there. Clay's in there. Draymond's in there. And I get you had to draft these guys. Joe Lacob and Bob Myers are probably at about 2 to 3% each. These guys thought they were fucking geniuses. It's the Jerry Krause thing with the Bulls. Whenever you have a dynasty, the guys who didn't necessarily have a huge part to play in the reason you were winning all of a sudden think they are geniuses. And the 2-timeline thing has never worked in sport. They thought they could outsmart everyone. They thought they could be arrogant and just, I don't know. I don't even know. And they draft Wiseman, Kuminga. It's just, and then when they realize it's not working, it took them 2 years too long to jump off the ship and fix it. The worst thing you can do in sport is fail slow. And that's exactly what the Warriors have done. It's why we're applauding the Clippers today, because they look at what they've got and they say, fuck it, we're blowing it up. It's why we're applauding the Grizzlies. We can't go any further. All right, we're blowing it up. The Warriors should have looked at the 2023 season and said, this is as far as we are getting with this team, with Kuminga. We have to get this guy off our team and we have to reset. So I'm honestly struggling to kind of articulate how angry I am, because we've got Steph Curry, who is still playing incredible basketball. And the way we reward him is with Kristaps Porzingis, who gets dizzy whenever he stands up. Like that's where we're at. So I just can't stomach this trade. I also feel terribly for Steve Kerr, who's had to put up with Jonathan Kuminga for multiple seasons, who knew almost instantly that this guy did not have it, that this guy was not a winning player, that he was a sook. And for some reason, the front office and ownership sided with Kuminga over Steve Kerr for far too long. And he's also still got Brandon Pajemski, who I can't believe is on this team. He's an expiring contract. I hope they just let him walk. I want the Warriors to blow it up. That's how I feel. But then I also look at Steph Curry and I say it's so unfair if that's the path you go down. But I just don't see a way for this team to compete. And I know I just ranted for about 7 minutes, but I'm just really frustrated.
No, it's I'm there with you, Eddie. I reckon I had a 7-minute rant before you as well. But I guess like what I would do now, and if I'm going glass half full, is that we've still got all of our draft assets, and they are good assets, because as Steph gets older, obviously I'm just concerned that there's going to be a major injury or he just actually falls off a cliff a little bit, especially with like a lack of help. But the way I would see us getting out of it is obviously you now rely on Jimmy Butler coming back next year.
Yeah. And
what I would do if you can't get one of the big fishes, I don't think Giannis is now an option to us, because we put up the 4 draft picks and he still said no. So what I would look to do now is to try and aim for one of those sort of mid-tier players that has a high upside. So that's why I was really on Trey Murphy. obviously I would have paid 2 first rounders for him. Maybe that wasn't enough for the Pelicans, but maybe it will be later on. But you just try and get someone like that. You hope that they have a jump similar to a Derek White at Boston, and you turn them into a star. And I would say that that's the only really way out of this, because you're going to have Steph. You're going to hopefully get rid of that Draymond contract with whatever trade you make. You bring back Jimmy Butler and say you bring in Trey Murphy, get a couple of good players, and you can be a bit of a frisky out for a team.
Yeah.
But yeah, in regards to competing for a championship, I think it's well and truly over.
Yes, it is. And I agree. Like, Butler is the main hope here, but he's 36 years of age coming off a major knee injury. Like, that's the kind of state we're in. And my worst case scenario is they get really desperate. And I could see them trading for like a Zion. Like, that's the kind of worst case scenario in my mind. You want it.
Bring him in.
I just don't want them getting super desperate.
You know, he recently broke his record for most consistent games in a season.
I just think he's a different guy, though, from when he came into the league. Like, I don't think the athleticism's there. I don't think the mindset is where it needs to be. I don't think he's a guy that is a winning type of player. And unfortunately, the Zion who came into the league as a rookie and every game was must watch, just it doesn't exist anymore. So
if I gave you a Draymond and Pods and 1 first rounder for Zion, would you take that?
Yeah, but I don't think the Pelicans do that. I think it needs more.
2 first rounders.
I still think they would want 3. Like, if Jaren Jackson Jr. is getting 3 first rounders,
you're not getting 3 for Zion.
Well, then I'm just saying that would be my worst nightmare if they got super desperate. I will say, though, we're very harsh on Draymond. We are. And a lot of the time it is deserving because he does some dumb things. But the way he handled this week, I thought was really impressive. He was clearly on the trade block. The rumors were everywhere. And he didn't spit the dummy. He got up in his press conference and he said, what a fucking run it's been. And that was pretty much it. He caused no drama. He was appreciative of the years. That's what you want from guys who are on the trade block. You don't want Kuminga faking injuries and doing things like that. And Draymond is 100 times the legend in Golden State than Kuminga is. And the fact that he just took it on the chin and said, you know what, this is the sport. It is what it is. I thought that was really commendable. So appreciate Draymond for that stuff. And I thought his press conferences this week were awesome.
Yeah, I really like that. And I also, there's a part of me that I wouldn't have minded that being the last time we heard from Draymond in the Bay Area. It would have been perfect. It would have been the perfect out and just finished documentary there.
Yeah.
And it would have been awesome. But yeah, like, I think all Warriors fans feel similar to Draymond, is that he causes us a lot of trauma, but it's our trauma. It's like if your kid does something that you just don't like. And as much as he's taken away chances to contend, done dumb shit, so you look back on it like, wow, 2016 finals, why don't you just sit on your hands and not try and get suspended? But then in the other way, none of this happens without him. If you're talking about that pie chart, I think he has a pretty good sort of slice of that pie. So always going to love him, and you need that chaos. And I think a lot of NBA teams lack that chaos these days, and that's why they never sort of contend. Like, even just quickly thinking about Cleveland, they would love someone like Draymond. I'm not saying they're going to trade for him, but someone that's a bit more crazy, angry or whatever. There are a whole lot of nice guys. There's a lot of nice guys there. And that's why when you get a player like a Josh Hart, which is a bit different to Draymond, but a Jalen Suggs, someone that plays with intensity from the start to the finish, they're so valuable. And even if they don't bring things offensively or defensively, they are 100% necessary to win.
Last thing on the Warriors, LeBron James has been heavily rumored to come to Golden State. He's going to be out of contract. If LeBron says, I'll take a minimum deal, which he won't do because it would hurt his ego too much. But if he said, I'll take a minimum, it'll be me, Steph, Draymond. Maybe they find a way to trade for Clay just for the fun of it.
Oh.
We got the big three back together in the Bay plus LeBron. Are you back in? Are you back in on the Warriors if that happens?
Dude, Eddie, it sounds like you're trying to, you want me to try and get my divorced parents back together. Come on, mate. I just don't think I want LeBron anywhere near Steph. I reckon Steph's career as a Golden State Warrior, being the king of the Bay, I don't want that LeBron nonsense. Even if it's for a minimum, I don't want it. I would actually rather, because that team's still not winning a chip, right? I'd rather be worse without LeBron than have LeBron and be marginally better.
Yeah. And there's always that tiny, tiny chance that if LeBron and Steph never play on the same team, Steph will somehow end up with more championships than LeBron. And I'm just desperate for that to happen. So,
yeah.
Exactly. Oh, man. Depression. It's hit me. The Warriors are fucked. We got one more trade to hit on. Vucevic for Anthony Simons. Not bad for the Celtics. I don't mind it.
I don't love it. I would have kept Simons, or at least sat on it. I think we said in our last pod, I hate the idea of Tatum playing this year. I think that's just awfully stupid. When you've got a player that's achieved so much already and never really got injured, and then has a major injury in the finals, the conference finals, really late in the year, and then they want to return already in less than a year. I just hate that. And I would have kept Simons, and that contract was still going on. So you can still move that at the end of the season. And that's where I would look to sort of go after someone. Vucevic, he's definitely a good backup center, but he's been a good backup center for a while. So you got to be careful with these sort of guys, because they do really fall off a cliff, similar to like a Brook Lopez sort of type. So I don't love it for the Celtics. They obviously did it for money reasons. So they get themselves under the salary cap, or like not as much over the salary cap, so they don't have to pay as much. The apron. So that's clearly where it's coming from. Boston have always been a pretty sort of cheap team with how they operate. They always look to try and save money. Fair enough. But that's sort of the clear sort of motivations behind this. And I think they're going to wait to see, like, give Tatum a run, see how far off he is. And then honestly, I would look to, if they don't think they can compete for a chip, I'd be looking to shut him down as soon as possible.
Just on the apron really quickly. So only 3 teams are over the first or second apron right now. The Cavs, the Knicks, and the Warriors. So at least Joe Lacob has to pay a shitload of money for the suffering he's caused us. However, it's not just money that is affected by being over the apron. You can't sign a player that's waived who had a pre-existing salary of $14.1 million or more. So basically, you can't say sign any buyout guy. So the Warriors are just stuck where they are. There's no chance of improving the roster from now on, except
Pat Spencer.
Exactly. I was about to say Pat Spencer's the only real thing they can do, signing him from a 2-way deal to a full-time deal. Oh. Anyway, I actually like it. And I would have agreed with you on the Tatum thing 3 months ago. But this team is pretty good. And you know what? The East fucking sucks. Like, it sucks. So when you have an opportunity to go ahead and win the Eastern Conference, which they do if Tatum is back, you take all the chances you can get, I think. And I'm not someone like, for example, Halliburton last year. You're in the finals. I get it's, you know, there's the risk of the injury, but he had to have come back in Game 7. Yeah, like, you never.
I fully agree with that.
I think with Tatum, the technology is just so good now. The likelihood of him redoing that injury just seems so low. And the chances of them winning the East outweigh the risk for me. So I think you're bringing Tatum back, and I think Vucevic fits quite well with this team, to be honest with you. You know what I like about the Celtics? They trust their coach. They trust him. The coach hates Anthony Simons. So what do? They trade him. You know, why do all teams not trust their coach? The coach is trying to win. Listen to him. So I love that from the Celtics. You bring Vucevic, who's a terrible defender, hasn't had a great year with the balls, but, you know, it's not like they've been competing for anything. So you kind of give them a pass mark on that. Shoots around 37% from three. That'll help the Celtics a little bit. You can stretch the floor.
And I swear he has a game winner every week.
Pardon?
I swear he has a game winner every week. Remember,
he does. So I kind of don't mind it for the Celtics, and I think they're going to be a really difficult team to beat come playoff time.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. But like, I guess where I'm a bit cut is that this season without Tatum has been probably the most I've enjoyed the Celtics for the last 5 years. I really enjoy watching them play. They play high octane. They put up a lot of points. They move the ball really well. They shoot a lot of threes. The pace is outstanding. And I guess it shows that they don't think that that's enough. And I probably agree with them. But as a consumer of the NBA, I enjoyed watching it. So I'm kind of sad that iteration of the Celtics is over. And then now they're bringing back Tatum, who I don't particularly enjoy watching.
Yeah. Last thing for you, because we've been here for nearly an hour, which is ridiculous. Give me your biggest winner and your biggest loser of the trade deadline.
Trade period. All right. So biggest winner is Memphis. I'm standing by that one for the reasons I said earlier. I just think they've done really well to sell their assets high, which is really hard to do, but it is easier to do when they're not exactly champions of the sort of team. They haven't won. So it's way harder to get rid of a past champion as opposed to a team that's fallen short. So I think Memphis is the biggest winner. And loser, it's got to be Giannis. It just has to be Giannis. He's just been an absolute sook, and I didn't think that he would do this sort of stuff, and that upsets me as a fan, but I have to call it how I say it.
Yeah. I'm going to go biggest winner, the Clippers. Loved what they did at this deadline. Garland is going to be awesome for them, and I can't wait for him to prove everyone wrong, including me. He's going to play 82 games next season and just be an absolute star for the Clippers. So huge win for them. Biggest loser, I think the teams that didn't do a lot actually deserve a little bit of a mention here. So the Lakers, no chance of competing this year. The Kings couldn't trade any of their guys that were on the market. You know, Monk is just out there for anyone, and no one tried to get him. There was a few other assets there that no one wanted, so they're definitely a loser. I think the Heat, look, they're not going to win anything in the Eastern Conference this year, but they were in play for Giannis and Ja. They decided not to do anything, but in the end, I agree with you. The Bucks are the biggest loser here. They're just going sideways. They're not going to compete this year or anytime soon, and they're going to end up losing Giannis in the offseason, and this whole circus they've created is going to be for nothing. So they're my biggest loser, and their social team can get fucked because all the victory lapping they're doing on Twitter right now, you can go search up their socials. It's ridiculous.
It's the saddest stuff I've ever seen.
Hilarious in a few months' time. And trust me, I've bookmarked a couple things. Freezing cold takes. We'll be all over that shit in a few months' time. Oli, thank you. This was awesome. We now get to lock into the NBA. The NFL's done, so there's going to be a few more NBA podcasts coming over the next few months. So I'm sure you'll be a part of them if you're willing.
Awesome. Always willing, Eddie. Thank you for having me.
Make sure you subscribe on YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Leave a comment if you disagree with anything. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.